Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking about the wonderful Netflix series, The Night Agent. We are joined today by cast members Gabriel Basso and Luciane Buchanan. And Gabriel, starting with you, one of the things that you've spoken about already in terms of this project is the early conversations that you had with Sean Ryan, who's the creator and showrunner, and how he really, really wanted to create a show that felt incredibly grounded and centralized through its characters. And off the back of that, I was really interested in, once you were on set, how you went into a lot of the larger scope of scenes for your character in making sure that no matter what the scene was or how heightened a situation was for him, that it always went back to that initial idea of everything feeling very grounded to him.
Well, I think the big thing I had to sort of figure out was the lens in which he viewed the world, and then that sort of informs how I'd react. So once I figured that out, then it's easy because a situation happens, and if I've already figured out what motivates Peter, then it's sort of easy to react to the thing. So I think the initial sort of work that was put in with Sean and the writers and everyone sort of informed the rest of the season. So it didn't really get any more difficult than the beginning.
I love that answer. And Luciane, in terms of your character, at the beginning, we see her in a moment of brief, huge success, and then we see her shortly after where she's really lost everything. She's lost her closest family members who were parental figures. She's lost a career that she'd really built from a place of passion by herself from the ground up. And yet there's something that she says so early on about she would give anything to get her life back to that space, even though it wasn't where she wanted it to be. And I was interested in how you worked to really create a character that was always trying to get back to this centralized place, even though it wasn't a place of success and everything that she wanted in place.
I guess you get caught up in like your career. I mean, I can understand from being an actor and putting everything into your work, and you like miss out on all the other good stuff, like spending time with your loved ones. So I guess she took for granted the little things because she had no idea that that was going to happen to her family. And I know people who do work in that space and in the Silicon Valley, they're so ambitious and they put everything into their work. So I think that was something I could relate to in a different way. And yeah, I mean, it's huge to lose two of your loved ones so quickly. So I think that from that moment, that sets up everything that she's trying to find out and seeking justice throughout the rest of the show.
Definitely. And Gabriel, and coming back to you in terms of Peter as well, he's just in such a place of stasis when we meet him at the beginning, and it feels like he's just been sitting in this basement for a year, kind of not really finding a way to move forward in his life with everything that he's holding on to internally. And so as you built this trajectory and this arc for him throughout the entire season, how did you make sure that it was always this very internalized journey as well at the same time, where each episode and each thing that he experiences is really kind of giving him a path back to himself and a path back to the idea of the future rather than just existing in the moment?
I think a big thing was having him not feel like a passive protagonist where things were just happening to him and he was being moved through the story, but there was actual I don't know, it felt like, for me at least, the character was experiencing these things, but he wasn't abandoning, like he wasn't a new character. So all his values and morality and the worldview he had wasn't changing so with each event. So he wasn't really playing catch up. He just cemented his values more. More was stripped away here, and now the whole world's after you, or now you're alone over here, and now this person's been ripped from your life. Do you lose the values? Does anything change internally? No. So it just sort of helped me see it in on a narrative level, all these things, different things happening as opportunities for Peter to sort of look at himself and really put his values through a test of, do you actually have conviction, or are you going to get rid of these principles because it's convenient and comfortable?
Yeah. And with Rose as well, she has so many wonderful attributes that really serve her well in this space and through all the endeavors that she's facing throughout the series, even though it's not a natural space that she would have chosen to step into in terms of that fighting for survival for herself. And I was interested in if you really just found that the scripts would give you all those details of how her personality was going to serve her really well, because even just small details, like when she's talking to Peter and she really observes in him, well, you always want to see the best in other people because you hope that it will be returned to you, shows how observational she is with everyone around her, and she's able to read people very quickly, for example.
Yeah, and I think they're so different, right? So she's picking up on like, oh, I wouldn't do it like that, but it's because you see the good in people, you know. So I think that's where that comes from. But which makes her look at herself and like the decisions that she makes. So it works really well. And yeah.
In terms of the stunt work and the stunt training that you both did for the show, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because it feels like a very different scope in terms of what each of the characters needed. Because for Rose, this isn't something that she's trained to do. She's not trained to be in these situations. So it's more of a guttural, instinctive place that she's coming from. And for Peter, he has this trained skill set, but he just hasn't used it for a while. So it feels like he develops and kind of finds more finesse back within himself as the series progresses. So I was just interested in how you both went into a lot of the stunt training and stunt work in the show in really thinking about those aspects of character.
Yeah. I talked to an FBI consultant beforehand, and I think it was cool. The stunt coordinator, Mitch, and I had a talk, and James, the fight choreographer, and we sat down, and I was very adamant that the fighting progressed in aesthetic and choreography from like detainment and incapacitation to desperation and violence at the end, just because he doesn't have his equipment anymore. He doesn't have his police baton. He doesn't have, he's picking up guns. He's picking up magazines. He's sort of salvaging everything he can. So by the end, he's more desperate to put people away than he might have been earlier in the season. So I did all the fighting myself, stunt-wise. There were a couple things I couldn't do that insurance would not let me do. But I think it was important that the action and everything felt like it was shifting throughout the season, and he was going from, oh, this is my training, to, dude, I don't have time to put my knee in your back and tell you to stay on the ground. Like, I have to put you away out of the situation.
And for Rose, what were the important aspects for you in some of those scenes?
Yeah, it's more instinctual. Like you've seen everything, right?
Yeah, the whole season.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just worried. I'm like, I don't want to like ruin it. But like, DB's character, Eric Monks, is like, stay in the car. Like, this is not your your arena, I guess. And she complies, but she can hear everything through that radio. And when she hears that gun go off, it's just like she just can't sit in the car. Like she has to do something about it. And just when it's the same with the fight with Peter and Dale. I mean, it started with Dale and Rose, and then Peter comes in and she can see that it's getting dire, and she's just, again, not going to stand there. She's just going to think on the spot. And so I think that it speaks a lot to her character as well. It's like in those situations, she always finds a way out, or tries to. They tag team.
I think the Dale and Peter fight was a big moment for what I was saying too, is because in the beginning, I long arm, short arm him, I toss him, and I have him on the ground, and I'm telling Rose to get out of there when I'm fighting him to fight him, and he's fighting me to kill me. And so there's a difference. And throughout the fight, I'm sort of, that desire to not kill him is sort of being like that line. I'm approaching it until the end. And so I think that was a cool little definitive moment in the season where you start to see Peter get more desperate and fighting.
And in talking a little bit about one of the extensive scenes in that realm later towards the season, I wanted to ask you about just some of the logistical elements and what really went into blocking out the scene where they're in the middle of a shipping container yard, because it seems like in addition to the stunt work and training and everything that you're thinking about in terms of character, it's also a real dance in terms of the relationship with the camera and the way that it's moving with you through all those spaces. And so I was just interested in what the process of choreographing and blocking out a really extensive and pivotal scene like that was like for both of you.
It was fun for me because Adam Arkin was directing those episodes, and he was really, and Millicent came in towards the end. But Adam, really trusted us as actors and everything. And he was very obviously professional. But I think the biggest thing for as an actor was knowing the camera operators and, knowing them and having them feel comfortable to tell you, hey, you need to slow down this run here. You need to, and they know, you don't know what they're seeing. So to have an open dialogue and to have mutual respect and acknowledge that it is collaborative, I think helped us get some shots that we might have not have gotten, just because of how, collaborative everything was.
And we had like a really amazing stunt coordinator, Mitchie. He would just stand right next to the camera. Like he was there with you and he would just cheer you on. And he was like, it wasn't like he was over watching the monitors and you're like, am I doing a good job? I don't know. He's like right there, like a dad on the sidelines, like go, 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 go. And yeah, it was awesome.
And in terms of the relationship between your two characters as well, there's a moment early on where Rose is talking about how she thinks there's something really beautiful about when people are so comfortable in silence and that there can be so much communication in the words that are never said. And I feel like the two of you have really found those moments between your performances with one another. And especially as the season progresses, it feels like there's all these really minute, nuanced little looks and shared communications that are going further than the dialogue of the scripts. And so I also wanted to ask you both about just working to really find those moments of intimacy, especially as they're building so much more intrinsic trust with each other.
Well, thank you, because we try. We're like, we can't like play this fast, like, because the show is fast. There's so many storylines and so much packed into each episode. So like we were like, we need to give the audience a bit of a break and make it feel organic and a little bit awkward as well, right? Because like
I think what might have helped us too was to put I know a lot of like nowadays, all the emphasis relationally is put on physical, interaction. And I think to limit that and actually have room to explore character wise and like you were saying, unspoken looks and moments and stuff where, it feels kind of surface level and the most base level of a show of affection to like grab someone's hand. But instead of that, we're having to like look at each other and it sort of, made that more possible than, oh, he saved you, now kiss. And then,
exactly. Like, yeah. It's just the fact that he like doesn't sleep. He's watching, like just little things like that. Like
I'm watching you all night.
And for you as well, Gabriel, with Peter, it feels like he's someone who really absorbs a lot of emotion from situations around him. So if someone gets injured or hurt, he really holds on to that and he blames himself quite frequently and carries a lot of guilt that feels very residual from everything in terms of his relationship and loss of his father when he was younger. And did you find that the writing on the page really gave you those elements of, okay, what is it that he's holding on to? What is it that he's carrying? Because it's something that feels like it grows and evolves and then also like dissipates as he learns to deal with it and navigate through it at the same time.
Yeah, I would say, the writers and Sean were definitely open too, because sometimes I would come to them and I was like, I don't need to say this line. I can say it looking at the person with my eyes and act it. And, it was nice to have that open sort of door to go to each other and say, hey, you need to say this. But also, okay, I'm open to changing this because you can act this. And a lot of what Peter goes through, and I think the reason he internalizes and feels responsible for people is because he's trying to control what's within his control. And if he fails, it's a reflection of him and his ability to protect. And I don't fault him for that. I think that's an honorable thing to feel and want. But I would say when you're feeling, you're not thinking. And I think those two parts of your brain, however that works, are opposite one another. And I think having him be poised and controlled in some scenes and then feel out of control in other scenes emotionally, making that shift was important to me to show that I wasn't like some stoic, automaton.
Well, you've both given such great performances in the series. So congratulations on everything. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.